Hey, how's it going? LI Flies Mike here. Today we're going to be tying the synthetic surf candy. Not too different than our bucktail surf candy, which we have a video for. I'll put a link up below. It's not too different than the bucktail surf candy, but it has a couple little extra nuances that we'll be touching on and what materials. So it's a great fly. It's much more durable than the bucktail version, and it's very effective for false albacore, striped bass, and bluefish. So let's get right into the video and we'll go over the materials. Hey, a little side note here. If you haven't checked out Pop Flies by Bob Popovics, definitely check it out. It's got a ton of info about different types of flies that he's tied. Great info about the surf candy, how to work bucktail deceivers, siliclones, all that. You'll see he's got the whole epoxy section, which all pertains to UV resin. And he's got a bunch of different surf candies in there, so check it out. It's a great book, support Bob Popovics, and let's get into the materials. Got some Supreme hair or unique hair, whatever works for you. I prefer Supreme hair personally. Got some Lateral Scale here, some pearl Flashabou, stuck on eyes, Danville monofilament thread, some body braid here, Mustad C70 SD Big Games, Solarez medium resin or thick, whatever works for you. And then we've got our Solarez thin for the second coat. And our trusty Zap Gap. Okay, first things first, we're going to take Bill's body braid. Tie that in. Wrap that like so. Tie that off. Start off with some white Supreme hair. Kind of measure that up real quick. Try not to build up too much thread here and get that hair even on either side. So now we're going to take some Flashabou here. Just take a couple strands of this and we're going to just loop this and put this right on here like so. Then we're going to take our pink Supreme hair, pretty much equal amount on the, measure it here, equal top and bottom with the amount. Take our lateral scale and just tie this right on the side here. Kind of parallel right down the middle of the fly. Let's cut that on either side. Okay, so now that we have our lateral scale on there, we can go ahead and just whip finish here. And we take our eyes and some super glue, and we're just going to go with a very small amount of super glue on either side. This just locks down the eyes while we're gluing them. Take our medium resin, and we're going to go ahead and put this UV resin just back behind the bend of the hook. I like having a little bit of UV resin sticking back past the bend of the hook, and that's going to prevent the fly from fouling. Main thing is you don't want to add too much. We're going to do a couple coats here so that way we can slowly build up the body. And I like to start with the thick or the medium, and then we fill the cracks in with the thin resin. Make sure we coat that and get back behind the bend of the hook as well. And you can just bring that resin back slightly. About 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch back behind the bend of the hook. Just kind of keep that material taut. And we'll go ahead and hit that with the light, and that'll lock it down for us to be able to work with it a little bit easier. Just kind of hit that with the light for a bit. I try to move the light around so it doesn't get too hot as we cure it, because if it gets too hot, you can get some yellowing. Now, a little note here, if there's any loose hairs, we want to cut them and get them out of the way. Another note here is I try to keep the candy kind of lifted up a little bit so we don't build too much resin up where the hook gap is. So now we can take some thin, or I'm just going to hit it with another light layer of medium resin here. Look for any gaps back behind the hook here. You want to fill in any of those gaps, and also make sure you fill in any crevices that are here. So I'll just hit it with one more coat of the medium, a light coat here, just to fill in any imperfections, and then we'll do one thin. I used to use a lot of the thick resin, but I've been a fan of the medium. It's a little bit easier to work with, doesn't have to take as long to let it flow. Gonna make sure I don't add too much, but I want to fill in all these little crevices here on the bottom, kind of even out the shape of the body. Just kind of hit that and move the light as you go around, so you don't overheat it too much. Okay, so now we're going to take our thin resin here. We're going to do one final coat here just to fill in any of the gaps and nooks and crannies. Running low on the thin resin. We'll do a light layer. You don't want to go with too much of the thin, because the stuff will run on you. And I'll show you a little trick here to make sure that it doesn't run on you. We're just going to make sure we coat the entire fly. Anytime I put resin on there, I want to make sure I coat the whole fly so you don't see any unevenness in the resin. Make sure we get up right behind the hook eye. There's no thread that's exposed. And if we need to, we'll do a second coat of the thin just to get that nice even body. So a little trick while you're using the thin resin, I like to kind of rock the vise back and forth so it hits the top and bottom. And I kind of move it around, hit it for about 5 seconds, and then I switch sides. You don't want to start here and just wait there. You want to kind of slowly move it back and forth. Let's check out and see what we're looking like here close up. It's looking pretty good. It's pretty even. I think we could do one light coat here just to kind of even out the body. Again, it depends how picky you're being. We're going to add just one more light layer. I'm just going to go with a little bit here. Again, you don't want to add too much. You don't want to make them too heavy and bulky. Alright, that's looking pretty good. I'm going to let it kind of naturally even itself out here. Again, kind of rock it back and forth while we move it. So this is the last coat here, so we're just going to hit this for about maybe 10 seconds on each side. And then I'll do a little bit on the top and bottom here, but I always try and take these and put them out in the sun on a nice bright day, because there's no real better substitute than the sun for UV rays. So now what we need to do is we need to trim the fly. So what I like to do is when I trim one of these surf candies, what I'll do is kind of like to grab the material like so and kind of hold that material straight, right? And you don't have to trim them, but I think it always looks better when you trim the fly. It's nice and tapered as opposed to just kind of ending in that big, block of material. So what I like to do is I like to grab the material here and I angle my scissors away. So like this. If I cut inwards, I'm going to cut into the material. So I angle them away, and I like to just kind of hit it on either side, a little bit on the bottom. And again, angling my scissors away as I do it. And all I'm doing is just kind of trying to taper that material just a little bit. Try not to cut the lateral scale. All I'm doing is just taking a little bit of material off. You can find yourself over trimming it quite a lot, but essentially all we want to do is just kind of give that a little bit more of a natural taper. There's our finished pink and white synthetic surf candy. Compared to bucktail, you're not going to have nearly as much movement, but the synthetic surf candies hold up quite well, especially when fishing for bluefish and striped bass. Well, appreciate everyone watching the video. Again, if you enjoy the fly time videos, you can feel free to subscribe to the channel. Check us out on Twitch every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have any suggestions for the fly time, or if you have any flies that you'd like to see tied, then feel free to write something down below in the comment section. As always, thank you so much for supporting the channel, and we'll be catching some fish any day now. Look forward to some fishing content coming up in the near future. So, as always, tight lines, stay safe out there.